When we think of France, we often picture famous landmarks like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre Museum and the romantic streets of Paris. The country is known for its rich culture, education system, and art. But what many people don't know is that behind this glamorous facade lies a dark history of colonial exploitation and the lingering scars of French imperialism. France was instrumental in the economic destruction of many African countries and Haiti, implementing policies that ensured they would always depend on France while exploiting their resources. While the nation may now be praised for its architectural wonders, education system, and artistic achievements, few acknowledge the devastating impact it had on the countries it colonized. In this video, we will reveal the truth that has been hidden and forgotten from mainstream media. We will talk about how France ruined Haiti, Guinea, and other African nations. This is not a history lesson, as France continues to exert its control over many African countries, milking them of their resources. We will expose the truth with the hope that France and other former colonial powers face their past and work towards addressing the imbalances created by centuries of exploitation. Before we get right into the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep informed of our eye-opening black narrative. The extortion of Haiti, once a French colony called Saint-Domingue, is a prime example of French cruelty. The colony prospered by enslaving Africans to work on plantations. France gained immense wealth from this brutal system, but at the expense of countless lives. In 1791, the Haitian people revolted against their oppressors and won their independence in 1804. However, the cost of freedom would prove to be too great, as France won't let its grand prize slip away. In October 1806, the country was split into two, with Alexandre Pétion ruling in the south and Henri Christophe ruling in the north. Despite the fact that both of Haiti's rulers were veterans of the Haitian Revolution, the French had never quite given up on reconquering their former colony. In 1814, King Louis XVIII, who had helped overthrow Napoleon, sent 3 commissioners to Haiti to assess the willingness of the country's rulers to surrender. Christophe, having made himself a king in 1811, remained obstinate in the face of France's exposed plan to bring back slavery. Threatening war, the most prominent member of Christophe's cabinet, Baron de Vaste, insisted, "Our independence will be guaranteed by the tips of our bayonets." In contrast, Pétion, the ruler of the South, was willing to negotiate, hoping that the country might be able to pay France for recognition of its independence. In 1803, Napoleon had sold Louisiana to the United States for $15 million. Using this number as his compass, Pétion proposed paying the same amount. Unwilling to compromise with those he viewed as runaway slaves, Louis XVIII rejected the offer. Pétion died from yellow fever in 1818, but Jean-Pierre Boyer, his successor, kept up the negotiations. Talks, however, continued to stall due to Christophe's stubborn opposition. Once Christophe died in October 1820, Boyer was able to reunify the two sides of the country. However, even with the obstacle of Christophe gone, Boyer repeatedly failed to successfully negotiate France's recognition of independence. On April 17, 1825, the French king suddenly changed his mind. He issued a decree stating France would recognize Haitian independence, but only at the price of 150 million francs, or around 10 times the amount the U.S. had paid for the Louisiana Territory. The sum was meant to compensate the French colonists for their lost revenues from slavery. Baron de Macau, whom Louis' successor, Charles X, sent to deliver the ordinance, arrived in Haiti in July, accompanied by a squadron of 14 brigs of war carrying more than 500 cannons. Rejection of the ordinance almost certainly meant war. The extortion of Haiti would begin at that very moment. With the threat of violence looming on July 11, 1825, Boyer signed the fatal document which stated, "The present inhabitants of the French part of Saint-Domingue shall pay, in 5 equal installments, the sum of 150 million francs, destined to indemnify the former colonists." Newspaper articles from the period revealed that the French king knew the Haitian government was hardly capable of making these payments, as the total was more than 10 times Haiti's annual budget. Forced to borrow 30 million francs from French banks to make the first 2 payments, it was hardly a surprise to anyone when Haiti defaulted soon thereafter. Still, the new French king sent another expedition in 1838 with 12 warships to force the Haitian president's hand. The 1838 revision, labeled Traité d'Amitié, or Treaty of Friendship, reduced the outstanding amount owed to 60 million francs, but the Haitian government was once again ordered to take out crushing loans to pay the balance. Although the colonists claimed that the indemnity would only cover 1/12 the value of their lost properties, including the people they claimed as their slaves, the total amount of 90 million francs was actually 5 times France's annual budget. The Haitian people suffered the brunt of the consequences of France's theft. Boyer levied draconian taxes in order to pay back the loans, and while Christophe had been busy developing a national school system during his reign, under Boyer and all subsequent presidents, such projects had to be put on hold. Moreover, researchers have found that the independence debt and the resulting drain on the Haitian treasury were directly responsible not only for the underfunding of education in 20th century Haiti, but also lack of health care and the country's inability to develop public infrastructure. Contemporary assessments furthermore reveal that with the interest from all the loans, which were not completely paid off until 1947, Haitians ended up paying more than twice the value of the colonists' claims. The impact of France's actions on Haiti's stability and wealth cannot be understated. This demand for repayment not only perpetuated the cycle of poverty, but also symbolized the theft of wealth from Haiti. In stark contrast to the poverty rates in metropolitan France, where 14.1% of the population lives below the poverty line, Haiti suffers from a dire situation with a staggering poverty rate of 59%. Such extreme economic disparity reflects the consequences of a history marred by exploitation and economic injustice. To exacerbate matters further, the median annual income of a French family stands at over $31,000, a significant contrast to the meager $450 for a Haitian family. These glaring disparities in wealth and income highlight the persistent consequences of stolen labor from generations of Africans and their descendants. The French indemnity, forcibly imposed on Haiti, compounds the nation's economic struggles. This indemnity demanded compensation from a formerly enslaved people to those who had once enslaved them, a situation unparalleled in history. The burden of this indemnity further deepened Haiti's economic woes, making it even more difficult for the nation to escape the cycle of poverty. The sabotage of Guinea. When Sékou Touré of Guinea decided in 1958 to get out of French colonial empire and opted for the country independence, the French colonial elite in Paris got so furious, and in a historic act of fury, the French administration in Guinea destroyed everything in the country which represented what they called the benefits from French colonization. 3,000 French left the country, taking all their property and destroying anything that which could not be moved. Schools, nurseries, public administration buildings were crumbled. Cars, books, medicine, research institute instruments, tractors were crushed and sabotaged. Horses, cows in the farms were killed, and food in warehouses were burned or poisoned. The purpose of this outrageous act was to send a clear message to all other colonies that the consequences for rejecting France would be very high. Slowly, fear spread through the African elite, and none after the Guinea events ever found the courage to follow the example of Sékou Touré, whose slogan was, "We prefer freedom in poverty to opulence in slavery." When Guinea decided to issue its own national currency in 1960, France organized a sabotage operation known as Operation Persil to destabilize the new country. The operation would base itself on two components: causing economic collapse and causing armed insurgencies against the Guinean government. The operation provided for the Service de Documentation Extérieure et de Contre-Espionnage, based in Senegal, to create large quantities of forged Guinean francs to flood the country with and bring about hyperinflation and economic collapse, similar to the Nazi Operation Bernhard. This would allow the French government to cause significant economic instability. The operation was also to arm opposition figures in Guinea and organize them into paramilitaries that would lead to civil war and the ultimate overthrow of Touré's government. However, the operation suffered a number of leaks, and the Guinea government would be able to stop the operation before it happened. Economic imperialism. When destabilizing former colonies did not give the desired results, the French would use other means to ensure it would hold on to colonies and continue to gain from their resources. Since 1961, France would lay claim to the national reserves of 14 African countries. These countries were all former colonies, including Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo-Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. The CFA franc was created in December 1945 when the French government ratified the Bretton Woods Agreement and became the currency of Les Colonies Françaises de l'Afrique, or the CFA, or French Colonies of Africa. The French treasury guaranteed the currency under a fixed exchange rate, but would require that the African nation made a deposit of 50% of CFA franc reserves into the French central bank, giving France control over the country's resources. The CFA was later split into the Communauté Financière d'Afrique, or Financial Community of Africa, which included the West African countries of Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo, and the Communauté Financière de l'Afrique Centrale, or Financial Community of Central Africa, including Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Chad, the Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. African countries have tried time and time again to liberate themselves from French control, and more often than not, African revolutionaries in former French colonies are met with violent resistance from the French government. The death of Barthélemy Boganda is a perfect example of this. Boganda was the president of the Central African Republic from December 1958 to March 1959. During this time, Boganda cut a lot of ties that the Central African Republic had with France. For example, he founded the Movement for the Social Evolution of Black Africa, a political party dedicated to liberating the French colonies in Africa, specifically the Central African Republic and the French Congo. Boganda was instrumental in the country gaining independence and planned to use his power to liberate other African territories from French rule. In an attempt to stop the Central African Republic's growing independence movement, France arrested Boganda during his 1951 campaign for endangering the peace. He was released shortly thereafter, but he was unfortunately killed in a plane crash in March 1959. The French General Secretariat of Civil Aviation headed an investigation into the crash, yet never publicized their report. The French newspaper L'Express leaked parts of the report that revealed that traces of explosives were found in the wreckage of Boganda's plane, and in response, the French High Commissioner suppressed all copies of L'Express printed in the Central African Republic. Another example is the Cameroonian Marxist politician Félix Roland Moumi, who was killed in 1960 when a French Secret Service agent slipped a dose of thallium into his drink in Geneva. Another Cameroonian leader, Nyobi, was shot dead in 1958 by the French military. Sylvanus Olympio, the first president of the Republic of Togo, is another significant African leader that would meet his end because he tried to improve his own country and end the ruthless exploitation of the French. In the 1960s, he would try to take his country out of French control by refusing the Colonization Continuation Pact. However, he would agree to pay an annual debt to France for the so-called benefits Togo got from French colonization. It was the only conditions for the French not to destroy the country before leaving. However, the amount estimated by France was so massive that the reimbursement of the so-called colonial debt was close to 40% of the country budget in 1963. Consequently, the financial situation of just independent Togo was very unstable, and in order to get out of this situation, Olympio decided to leave the monetary system set up by colonial France and created the currency of the country. On January 13, 1963, 3 days after he began printing the new bills, a squad of soldiers supported by France seized and killed the first elected president of independent Africa. Olympio was executed by an ex-French legionnaire, the sergeant of the army Etienne Nassingbe, who, at the same time, received a bonus of $612 from the local French embassy for the success of his mission. Olympio's dream was to build an independent and autonomous country, but the idea did not correspond to the French wishes. Etienne Nassingbe would become president and enforce the monetary system provided by France. Through practices like the CFA franc currency and controlling a large portion of African countries' reserves, France maintains economic control that hampers the growth and independence of these nations. The presence of French military bases in Africa also raises concerns about neo-colonial power dynamics and contributes to political instability. It is important to expose these issues and bring attention to the harm caused by France's actions. The CFA franc, for example, limits the economic choices of African countries and keeps them dependent on France. This dependence restricts their ability to address important social and developmental needs, keeping them trapped in poverty. Moreover, France's control over African countries' reserves prevents them from using their own resources to improve their societies, making them some of the poorest countries in Africa. This control reinforces economic dependence and prevents these nations from making independent decisions about their futures. Africa cannot develop as long as France continues to see the continent as nothing but a tool to enrich France and advance France's global political influence. To create a fair and equal future for African nations in Haiti, we must shed light on these issues and have conversations that address the historical and ongoing consequences of France's actions. African countries need to regain control over their economies, reserves, and political affairs, free from neo-colonial influences. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching.